falsehood, you're faced with two options. You can accept it or you can reject it. The basis upon which we take one of these actions is a product of our critical thinking capabilities and a desire to know what is true instead of confirming our bias. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. On Brainstorm, we choose the hard truths over the comforting lies. Reason, compassion, skepticism. This is the Brainstorm Podcast.
To those listening weekly, welcome to the Brainstorm Rec Table, the brainstorm production where we spend some time discussing one topic or many, depending on the way the conversation flows.
But only rectums.
That's right. Or at least rectums.
Because it's the rec table.
This is an open brainstorming session where I kick things off with some thoughts and we see where things go from there. I'm Cory and I'm joined by Lisa.
Still me.
Dan.
What's up?
Sarah.
Hello.
And, of course, the always amazing Dave.
I'm trying really hard tonight.
Does he make you call him always amazing? Or
No, Cory made
I
this up.
choose to call him
I
amazing.
actually don't like
Sweet.
it.
It's too much pressure.
But sometimes amazing. Sometimes amazing.
Occasionally amazing, mostly mediocre Dave.
We're
That's not true,
broadcasting
though.
live
Dave is always
still.
amazing.
We are still broadcasting live from Roman Empire Studios in Regina, Saskatchewan, and today is September 28th, 2018. Okay. So I guess the topic, we kind of touched on it when Dusty was here, rape culture and the Kavanaugh hearings. And I thought that would be a good place to kick things off with some thoughts. Anybody have any?
No, I'm just a woman.
If one more person says to me that somebody is innocent until proven guilty, I'm going to lose my shit. Right. This isn't a court of law. This is a fucking job interview. If somebody has a bad attitude in a job interview, they don't get a job. If somebody has multiple accusations of sexual misconduct against them, you're going to give them like one of the highest jobs in the country. Mm-hmm. I will lose my mind.
But more importantly, a job that you can't be fired from.
Yeah.
A job for life.
And one that makes laws that govern the country.
Yeah.
Well, they don't make laws. They interpret laws and set precedents.
True, yeah, true.
But no, you're right.
They have a lot more power than,
I'm
the guy that cleans the toilets.
Yeah. And I wouldn't want that guy to have sexual assault.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I prefer that guy not to be a rapist too.
We prefer all men to not be rapists,
And women. Let's just
that's
in case.
true. Yeah.
All
humans
people should
All
stop
humans.
being racist. Or rapists. And racists.
Yes. Agreed.
Both.
Sometimes you need them on Game of Thrones for plot things. That's the only
That's
context.
the only
But that's pretend.
Pretend
Not
rapists
real life.
on HBO.
Right.
Sometimes.
So there's
Sometimes.
just so many things to talk about in this whole situation here that we can just kind of start with any of them and just kind of branch off to so many more. One thing that when I was listening, I think I was driving and listening on CNN radio or something, or maybe it was even on News Talk 980. I think they were playing some of the recordings, and I happened to be listening live while he started sobbing.
I didn't see that.
I listened to that.
He was reading a letter from somebody that he had
I didn't hear that part.
had a clerkship with him or something along those lines, and she was basically saying that her life was so positively changed by Kavanaugh and that she never would have been able to achieve if he hadn't done what he did for her. And he choked up thinking about all these good things that he had done for this woman and how happy that she was that she had worked with him. And you know what? I have my education degree. I've taught some students before. I can understand that feeling, how it must feel to look forward 20 years on someone's life and think, wow, I had such a positive effect on them, and I made them change their life so good, and that they're so proud to have worked with me. None of that has any bearing on what he did when he was 17. If he did it, which it quite clearly seems like he did, like you can never
That's
negate
great
it.
that you also
Yeah.
did good things.
Well, exactly.
Good for you.
That's
Here's
right.
a cookie.
Both are true. You
still
did
don't
bad
get to be a
things,
Supreme
and
Court
you
justice.
did some good things. It doesn't. It's not like, oh, okay, those cancel each other out. Now
Yeah.
what's next?
Yeah.
I think that speaks to the what you guys were saying before about how the image of the bad guy in the alley that is doing the raping, that we imagine rapists as this dark figure in hiding in the alley and his whole life is evil. He's an evil person who does evil things all the time.
He probably
and just,
steals too.
and people are just
does
way more
the
nuanced
drugs
than that, right?
And all of that, yeah.
Yes, he's definitely on the drugs.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I'm truly curious if the people that are saying, well, you know, like, you can't believe everything. She could be lying. She's just trying to tarnish. I truly want to believe that if those men actually spoke to the women in their lives and found out that probably at least one female they've met has been raped or sexually assaulted, if they would still feel that way, or if it's truly just out of ignorance,
Right.
that it's like, you know, it's so outrageous. Like, oh, it couldn't have possibly. Like, people don't get raped by normal people. That doesn't happen. Like, that he must be some crazy guy lurking in the shadows. But
Right.
no, he's a regular person in society. It couldn't possibly be real.
Well, I think that one thing that maybe gets overlooked is when you hear somebody's testimony, it's 35 years later, she's obviously safe now, and you know, she was able to escape before anything worse happened to her. But I think if you're in a moment like that, the fear and terror that you feel at that moment is just really hard to explain. It's like in the sober light of day, 35 years later,
Right.
to explain why, as a grown-up woman, you know, obviously very successful and accomplished, she could still be, you know, speak about it with that much emotion and it's really hard to explain just how scary it is for somebody else to have physical control over, and you're not sure you're safe. Like, that is
Right.
really scary. And I think it's hard to, it's easy to dismiss, like, they're just teenagers, but to understand, I mean, and at one point in her testimony, she said something like that they were laughing at her and they were two good friends having fun. I feel, and given what we know about memory and it may be that he genuinely doesn't remember the incident.
Yeah.
I certainly, like, given just how she spoke about it, and I mean, she seems, I mean, everyone, even Fox News, is agreeing that she seems credible.
Yeah.
But I think it actually is possible that he literally just doesn't remember that it happened, because it wasn't a scary, terrifying incident, because nobody was controlling him or threatening his safety that way. So
Right.
it just didn't. And
It was a thing you do at parties. It wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah.
it's entirely possible. It doesn't mean it's okay. It doesn't mean, I'm just saying it's not. They could both be telling their version of the truth.
Yeah.
Especially if he, you know, if he thought that what he was doing was just, I don't want to say harmless fun,
But if
but,
he
you know,
knew that
friends
he was
being like,
never, like, let's say in his mind, he knew he wasn't actually going to physically penetrate her,
Yeah.
but he was, you know, blah, blah. But
There's
given
no way
how she
for-
described
yeah.
that, I don't even know if that's true. I don't
right,
even
because
think
like
so.
with his buddy there, maybe in his head he was thinking like, oh, this will just be funny if we like pin her down and like scare her and then run away and it'll be funny. Like, trying to get into the head of a drunk 17-year-old is like absolutely impossible.
it's
But you can't take away from the absolute fear and terror she would feel with two guys there and being physically pinned down. Most guys can't even imagine how that would feel just because of the size and muscular.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
But what I was actually getting at with my point was that so many people came out to like laugh at him for his crying, for his emotion, and it's really strange because, I mean, guys always do seem to get made fun of when they show emotion or when they cry in that regard, but like people were drawing comparisons between like, well, look at Hillary, she got grilled for 11-12 hours in her hearing and stayed, you know, calm the entire time, whereas Kavanaugh got very emotional and heated and yelling and screaming and crying at certain times.
I think my understanding is that Trump saw his interview on Fox News a couple nights before with his wife, and he felt that he wasn't angry enough. and he didn't get emotional and deny things vehemently enough. So I think that may have been what he was.
Oh. That's
what they're saying. Like,
is that where all the conspiracy theory nut jobbiness came from too in his defense? Like what?
I mean, yeah, it could be trying to appeal to that to Trump and that crowd.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those talking point lines that the Republicans kind of pushed the whole time, was like, this is just a Democrats trying to sabotage our nominee.
Oh, and he said that, right? Yeah. But I just felt like it came off like it's so not the right way. It's a fine way if you already believe that she's lying and that he's telling the truth. It's a fine way to kind of get those people riled up, but it's a terrible way to convince people who are on the fence or are not sure, because like getting really defensive like that is totally kind of rough. And all his bullshit. Oh, my daughter, I had to explain this to my daughter and it was so hard. And it's like, okay, this has no relevance, because if you did it, then that's your fucking fault. That's not her fault. Like, you know what I mean? And he referred to her as that woman, and I don't know. I just
and it really
or the woman. I think. Anyways.
I don't feel bad for you that you have to explain to your daughter that you sexually assaulted somebody. Yeah. You did this. Like,
why would I feel sorry? I feel sorry for her, I guess, because that's
right.
shitty. That's your but that's not anyone else's fault. Like, no.
Did you see the video today of the women confronting Jeff Flake on the elevator?
I did not.
Oh.
It was really like actually almost uplifting in a sense, because they were so empowered and in a way to speak their truth to this man in power and be like, I had this experience, and what you're telling to me right now is that this doesn't matter. And it was like, I think two women spoke to him when he was trying to get on the elevator. Yeah, it was really, really powerful.
Because I think that's the whole undercurrent of this thing too. It's one thing to see what happens to Kavanaugh himself, but how this plays out, and even how it has already, teaches an entire generation of victims that it's not worth coming forward, that this is how you're going to be treated.
Right.
And she's like the perfect victim, and I hate saying that, but the other one that, well, she was drinking this, like all the same bullshit excuses for why women get raped. She's like the perfect victim, and is still being called a liar and getting death threats and all of that. Why would any woman ever come forward?
I don't think she got raped enough, according to, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't what happened to her. She kind of got away before she was, I guess, I don't know.
Really,
I mean, she was terrified. So I think,
that's
just, I don't know. I think that's the violation had occurred. But I'm just saying, like, for people who want to say, oh, well, that's just shit that happens. I mean, and, it's not soon enough after. Right. And it's also, and she doesn't remember some things. So, I mean, there's also, not that I'm saying that she shouldn't be believed. I'm just saying, like, these are all the things that are. There's no such thing as a perfect thing. Because if you come forward too soon, it's not good either. And if you never see anything, what do you do?
So here's one way that I look at it. Let's say that this was the only time that he had ever done this in his life. If that were true,
except for the woman that he made touch his penis at Yale.
No, that's what I'm saying.
We're pretending.
Suppose before we knew about
thought experiment.
Thought experiment. Yeah, I should have said that first. So before we knew about the other people who had their claims against him too, if this had been the only time in his life that he had ever done that, and he knew that, the actual defense for him would be to admit it, because people in America love to forgive, especially when you're religious. So he could say, you know what? I did do that. I sincerely regretted it. I was drunk. I was young. I've changed my life ever since. And this is an A to Z, is everything I've done ever since to help empower women. And then everybody would say, oh, yeah, I was 17 once. I did some stupid shit. But he can't use that defense. And the reason why he can't use it is because he knows about all the other stupid things that he's done. And he knew that all of those other people could potentially come out, which would shatter his defense. And so that's why it only leaves him a few options left.
It's also not the Trump way, right? Like, so in order to do that, like in order to fit in that White House, because he is Trump's candidate, right? Like, in order to get that vote, it's not admitting you've ever done anything wrong. It's not. Well, but he's really channeling Trump, right? He's getting mad. He's entitled. He's, it's not. That's
speaking of the Trump way, I don't want to. We'll get back to Kavanaugh, but like, did you see him after his speech at the UN when people laughed when he said that he was? When he was this is the most that a government had done in America in the history of the country, and everyone
just straight up laughed.
I think like one or two people laughed, and then everyone else kind of chuckled nervously. But anyways, afterwards, when he came out, people were like, "Oh, what did you think of the laughter?" And he was like, his retort was, "Oh yeah, it was meant to make people laugh." That was the response I wanted. And I was like, "Oh, Trump, you're so fucking stupid. You can't say that because you've also said that not intending to get people to laugh 10 times in the past year before. So people are going to find these clips when you're bragging about your administration, not trying to get people to laugh when you're doing it like genuinely. And now you're saying you're doing it to get people to laugh."
Are you saying as a result of this, people may find inconsistencies and things that
Yeah, I'm like, that's been happening for
I don't
a
know.
while.
That doesn't sound like
I'm
something
sorry.
that could possibly happen.
I keep trying to look at
contradictory
I keep trying to look at Trump as a logical person.
He can lie. No. I mean, what did George Costanza say? It's not a lie if you believe it. That's why he does it. He just sort of like...
It makes me think of that big button on John Oliver's desk where he's like, "We did it! He's out! We got him in a lie, and everybody can see it." And it just doesn't.
I haven't watched John Oliver in so long. Oh my god, what's wrong?
Yeah,
with
that's
you are
actually
missing
quite a
out.
hold down.
He's one of my weekly go-tos.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I doing with my time?
What are you
stupid?
Stream it, record it, do whatever you have to. He's worth it.
I don't know what I do with my time. I just
knit.
Sometimes
you knit,
I do knit, but I can't. I have trouble paying too much attention to the news. I just find it so ghastly. Like it's really hard.
That's why I only get my news from like comedians.
Yeah.
Right.
Samantha Bee, Jim Jeffries.
It can be funny. Yeah. It's the American news for sure. Although, kind of preparing for this podcast, I listened to The Daily. Has anyone tried listening? So that's the New York Times' daily news synopsis. Okay. So I was listening to, they were talking about Kavanaugh today, obviously. So, and then it was about 36 minutes long, and they had clips and from and it's not. I wouldn't say it's totally objective, but it was very The Daily is a good New York Times podcast.
So getting back to
after
Kavanaugh.
you're done listening to Brainstorm podcast fully, getting to end every syllable, every episode,
even the boring segments at the end,
even the ones with Gumby,
even the ones with Gumby. That's right.
So. Tell me a little bit more, because you sound like you kind of knew what's with this guy that was confronted on the elevator. He sort of holds some power here.
Who's that guy?
Flake,
doesn't he?
Yeah, he's on the Judiciary Committee, and
there's 11 people, right?
21.
Okay,
yeah.
21, okay.
Those are the humans who make a recommendation as to whether or not he should,
whether or not they should move forward to Senate vote. And so Jeff Flake was on this committee, and before today, he had released an email saying, "I'm voting yes on moving it forward." And he did ultimately vote yes at the end of the day, but he also called for an FBI investigation, which is more than he was saying before.
Yeah.
Why is he the quote-unquote swing vote?
Well, I don't think he...
Like, I'm seeing him
I think there's
to as
3 or 4 senators who are not clearly going on. There's one Democrat and 3 Republicans, two of which are women, who aren't exactly sure which way they're going to vote on this guy. So sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to say before, like before all this stuff about possible rape allegations that came out, like I was listening. I listened to this other podcast called, which after I listened to all the Brainstorm ones, called. Stay Tuned with Preet. Is anyone listening to this one?
No.
So it's the former district attorney of the U.S. The U.S. district attorney of the Southern District of New York. Yeah. So he worked for Obama, and he worked for Trump very briefly, and then got kind of canned by Trump.
Okay.
He's very smart. He's a lawyer, but now he has a podcast, and it's just great. It's so interesting, and he's very fair-minded, and he's very, very measured. Anyways, so he had a judge on who was talking about Kavanaugh, and this judge was saying that he thinks that if Kavanaugh gets appointed, that they're looking at an overturn of the famous Roe v. Wade case that gave women the right to have abortion. But within like a few years, like 1 or 2 years, because basically Trump had made a list of like 18 judges that he would consider for Supreme Court,
including some women on this list. Yeah,
maybe
we all know you're not going to vote in a woman.
But Kavanaugh was not one of them, and so he was at least number 19 or 20. Of course, because he wasn't in the top 18. And then apparently there had been a case where I think it was that Kavanaugh presided over, that was a young, an immigrant who wasn't a citizen of the U.S. who was, I think, in custody, who was seeking an abortion.
Okay.
And he ruled against her being able to have one.
Right.
And in his ruling, he kind of used a lot of the language that the right to life movement uses. and they feel like that possibly signaled them that, hey, I'm your guy, like I'm your Roe v. Wade Trump card, you know, and so and then after that case came forward, then he was nominated. So people are saying it's quite likely that he puts that in jeopardy.
It has seemed to be pretty clear that the intent of getting Kavanaugh on the bench and even Gorsuch too was to overturn Roe v. Wade. Like it's
the crazy thing to me is they all fully
sorry, just to have the conservative majority for like another generation essentially. To
right.
Else.
Yeah, because they're both young too.
They fully deny it though. Like they deny this, like the Republicans, they deny the politicalness of it, and the judges will say, oh, well, if you ask them straight up, like, well, what would you vote if Roe v. Wade came up again? What would you? And they would say, oh, I'm not allowed. I shouldn't really say anything that I'd have to make a ruling on as chief judge or as a justice. So blah blah blah. And it's really. Yeah, so but it's like this weird pretend dance. Everyone knows that it's political. Like what? Like
they don't. If they don't say it out
not
loud.
political. Like what? No, like, clearly.
Yeah, if they don't say it out loud, then they can play the "oh well, I didn't really mean it that way" type of game.
Well, yeah, and you have to realize also in this, people are really upset over like Obama tried to appoint a justice in his last year in office, and Republicans basically wouldn't let him, saying, "Oh, well, it's an election year." Well, this is an election year. Yeah. Every other year is a fucking election year. Yeah. So not for a presidential election year, but it's still, you know what I mean? So anyways,
they justify that by saying, oh, well, because we didn't expect Scalia to die. So then it was an unprecedented.
But there's a reason they're pushing it through before November.
That's right.
If you weren't worried, then you wouldn't be trying to push a potential sexual assault.
On the plus side, on Stay Tuned with Preet today, he was saying that, and he's, like I said, experienced lawyer, he was saying that he thinks it's very unlikely that if Kavanaugh does not get confirmed, that they would have time to push somebody else through before November. Right. So that's good.
But we all assume he's going to get, like,
I'm pretty confident he's going to get confirmed.
I don't know.
What could the FBI possibly find?
But you have several.
Yeah, that's not already out there.
You do have those senator holdouts on the committee who may or may not vote to.
Yeah, I think if the FBI, the women's lawyers already have amassed, all the evidence they're going to be able to get, and some of it is relatively good considering it's an old.
And it already
incident.
Didn't convince people.
Right, but when you have the FBI saying, yes, we think these claims are credible, I don't know if the FBI is even able to do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, are they looking at it from something, is it credible or not credible, or are they saying it's true or it's false? Because you can't say it's true or false if you're doing the standard of the law.
Yeah.
Innocent until proven guilty. But if they're saying, yeah, we think we have no reason to believe that these aren't true claims.
They can't, like you say, the FBI can't unequivocally say this is a fact. We know this happened.
But are they allowed to say we find the claims credible
I'm
in
not
writing?
Sure.
And because if that is the case and he gets put through, oh my God, you're all awful. And now it's like on paper that you're awful and it's out there that you're awful, right?
Well, I don't think the FBI is officially investigating. That's the point. Like they haven't officially launched an investigation.
But now they're actually open to there maybe being one recommended to happen.
Well, the other thing is there actually isn't. I mean, even if they're looking, they don't have time to push somebody else through till November.
No, that's right.
So there's not a huge rush for that. Like they might, like if they really want credibility for this guy, like they should, like the Republicans should want an investigation. They should want the FBI to clear him so that there isn't this cloud hanging over. There's no rush for it. So like take a few months, do the investigation, then come and vote. Like why wouldn't you if you're honestly looking for the best?
Yeah,
for a reasonable choice for
the that's true.
But you'd think. Well, anyways, they should.
They don't even want to keep up appearances that they're trying to get them a good candidate in.
They don't.
I mean, it's talking about nuance. I mean, like not every politician or every senator and every congressperson is going to feel the same way that way. I mean, some of them may honestly want somebody there who's good.
But none of them seem to be showing that to be the case.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, I don't think the public has any faith that those people actually they care about getting a Republican in, even if it's a trash human. At least it's a red human.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that reminds me of like there's people at Trump rallies that have shirts that say like better a Russian than a Democrat type things. Like, I mean,
but there's extreme people in every group. Like we have Cory.
Yeah. That's true. That's the trouble though with the Republicans though, is that it's essentially been taken over by the extremes, right?
Yeah.
So
at least they're the loudest, and then they're ones we're hearing.
Yeah.
Well, it's all about appealing to their voters, right? If their vote, even if they find Trump distasteful, if their voters are all supporting them in their district, they don't.
Well, even moderate Republicans who maybe disagree with what's going on are still being like, yeah, but I don't want those dirty Democrats in there.
Yeah,
so
I don't want to lose.
Yeah, exactly. So
socialists, you mean? Not Democrats.
I mean, we saw that with what's his Roy Moore. Like
that's right. Yeah, same basic thing, right?
But way, 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 way worse. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's just bizarre. I don't know.
So do we take bets and like get some of us can get some joy out of the result, or?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think anyone's going to take the side of him not getting confirmed. It just seems
I'll take it. Even if it's long odds, I'll take it.
You'll take the long odds?
Yeah. If I win, if you win, what do I give you?
We should find out what the Vegas odds actually are on that. Like that seems like something that would be funny.
Someone Google that.
You get to host the next show, Lisa, if you win. Like
I don't want to be punished if I win. Like that's not fair.
That's like a reward for me.
You don't want to be the lead host, where you get to do the intro and read Cory's show notes
before, and I've let Angela, who is far more capable than me, do that. Yes.
Yeah, it's a little bit of extra work.
It's like work and shit. I totally read my article, sort of.
All right, so it seems like...
Hey, Cory, did you see this picture on Facebook?
Our listeners can't see
I know,
that.
The caption says...
I can probably
we'll
share
post it on
Facebook.
the thing. We'll post it on our thing.
Okay.
The women's faces in this photo, and it's Kavanaugh and there's several women in the audience. They all just sort of look disgusted. They just kind of had this moment where like women are just like, ugh.
I don't want to ruin it, but apparently that's his like family and friends. Yeah. It's not actually his detractors.
But that's still resting fuck you face.
You know what, though?
Yeah,
in that case, maybe they're just
fun.
feeling so sorry for him because he had to talk to his daughter about this horrible situation that he's in.
Yeah, it looks like that, or maybe someone just farted and it caused them to...
That's possible.
Disgusted.
So gross.
I've got the
that
Vegas
was the
odds.
face, Cory. That was the face.
I've got Vegas odds here.
Okay.
So Thursday morning, Nevada had the odds at plus 115 for yes, meaning that if you bet $100, you would win back 215. So that means
yes, he would get confirmed.
So that means he's a slight underdog, like say about 45%.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that means a no carried odds of minus 145.
I mean, isn't it true that more like most people who are nominated are not confirmed? Like, isn't it true there have been more that have? Like,
I don't actually know that.
Yeah. It's not like it's an automatic. Am I wrong?
I have bad news. After by 1 p.m. During his testimony, the yes line shifted to minus 150, which basically means he swung about 80 points in the other direction. So now you would have to bet $150 to win $250 back. So whatever happened during that testimony helped him, apparently.
Right. That's bizarre to me.
I didn't think it was so great.
I thought he did pretty shitty, but
the question isn't whether he convinced normal humans. The question is whether he convinced politicians to vote his way, which they're choosing to do based on their core constituents, not based on what normal humans think.
Yeah, and the Vegas line shifts based actually mostly on just where people put their money. So if based on his hearings, it attracted a lot of people that wanted to put money on yes, then it would shift the line to make the odds worse for the yes. So perhaps the people who it attracted the people that wanted the yes.
That were more sympathetic.
What do those people know? I don't know. I feel like that's like...
You know what? Vegas odds it's such a great thing because, I mean, they this is how they make all of their money is by they want the the end result to be like an equal amount of money on each side, so that no matter what happens, they make their 10% juice in the middle. And so if people keep slamming money on one side of a bet, they keep making the odds worse and worse and worse until people start betting money on the other side. And that's why actually in a situation like this, or say Trump, if you bet money at Trump when he was like plus 3,000 or something like that, and then the line shifted to where he was like minus 1,000, you could actually bet a substantial amount of money more on the other side and still win guaranteed. It's a rare situation, but you can.
So I just want to argue though that this setup is designed to optimize the profits of the people running the bets. It's not designed to create the most It's not designed to create a predictive model of what's actually going to happen.
That doesn't.
So
you're right.
their incentives are not lined up that way.
Well, of course, that doesn't mean now that
it doesn't mean anything.
That he's twice as likely now to get a yes vote. It's that, oh shit, a bunch of people slam money on the yes, so we need to shift our line accordingly so that we still make money. So it's an indicator that more of the general public that's wagering money is now thinking that he's going to get yes. But because we know the average person is stupid, these results or those shifting lines really
but we also know the whole thing is systemically set up to create relatively even odds on each side.
Yes.
Then it's not pushing
it only
things
tells
in
you
the right
where the money is going. That's really what it's telling you.
Political pollsters like Nate Silver does not use this to predict anything.
No.
Because it has no predictive value.
No,
that's what you're telling me.
In fact, those betting lines would probably actually use Nate Silver.
Right, yeah.
His info
they would if they could, but they don't. They just use people putting money down or not.
Yeah, but I mean, they could use his.
They want it to be predictive of the truth, but they don't care. They just want it to be even.
Right, but they could use his predictive odds to kind of tell where they should maybe set a line before they open it.
And then adjust as the bets come in.
As the money come in, yeah.
See, I'm not sure that he can really. I mean, his expertise is in large groups of people voting in districts. Like this is
so
a
it would
totally
be pretty
different
tough to predict.
Well, this is what you're talking
him.
for. Well, I would assume because what you're talking about is specific, a small number of 100 people and where they're going to vote, right? Like that's.
It is true. I mean that info though can be.
I wonder
they can base
if it's
it
as
kind of on public opinion.
complicated as we're making it.
Well, I'm just saying it's hard to predict how 100 people are going to vote.
Right.
It's easier to predict how 10,000 people are going to vote because that's a
Right.
statistical thing that's not subject to small fluctuate. One
Right.
person changes, not a big deal. Whereas with 100 people voting, one person changes makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And in this case, you don't just have 100 people, you have 100 people representing a specific perspective.
Yeah.
Or you have 50
100 senators.
Yeah, you have 100 senators, half of which, or slightly over half of which, represent a particular perspective, and slightly under half of which represent the other half.
But in the States, unlike in Canada, it's not like the whole party all votes the same no matter what. It's like, I mean, it's like there is some wiggle room. Sometimes some Democrats will sometimes vote like with the Republicans and vice versa. Like that happens.
Yeah.
but
Which
in this
is-
case, we're assuming,
Yeah.
with the exception of you. And maybe me, just because I'd like to have some hope in humanity.
I'm not saying it's
that he's gonna
likely.
get
I'm just
through.
saying it's
Yeah.
possible that he doesn't get
Yeah.
confirmed.
But
It's possible.
Is it at least going to be a close vote if he gets in?
My own personal viewpoint is that it's probably going to be almost exactly down party lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It doesn't matter how close it is in the end.
no, that's right.
But I have slightly more hope for humanity if not everyone's like,
One
no,
or
no,
two
no,
Republicans
he should totally
were
get
like,
it. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice if a Republican had an independent thought?
Yeah, I don't know. Republicans with independent thought seems like a bit of a oxymoron.
Actually, I thought that's where you were going. Yeah, so I think in terms of that Kavanaugh hearing, I mean, what else is there left to talk about?
I was thinking, I watched earlier today. I don't know, it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was watching, and Grassley or whatever the hell his name is was yapping on, and they switched over to watch Lindsey Graham talking in the hallway, and I want to hit him so badly. Like he's just the worst human. Like, he's just a bad person. And
But he's got the most beautiful gay Louisiana accent. Like, it's so pretty. You got to give him that. Give him that.
Okay. Yeah, he can have
Soft.
that. But
like, you
I
can just tell his hands are soft. Like, he moisturizes a lot.
He's never worked a day in his life.
That's, well, I mean, being a politician, I'm sure it's some work, but it's just,
Except telling those workers on the cornfields
that.
what to pick. I told them what to do.
It didn't make up for it. The look on his face, I just can't stand it.
Someone tore into him good about how big he was on his buddy the Maverick before McCain passed, but yet still how he just sold himself out to go golfing with Trump constantly and is now just like every other Republican, just right along
Toes
party
the line.
line.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll never take an independent. I mean, they might pay lip service to say, "Oh, I don't agree with that decision." That blah 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 blah, just so they can kind of go back to their base and say that they're standing up to some of the things the president does. But when it comes to voting, no, their record is going to be
that's the thing. Like they, I was listening to, I think it might have been Pod Save America, and they were talking about the way different Republicans vote, and it's like, oh yeah, well this so-and-so talks a good game, but he voted with Trump 95% of the time. Like,
So
who gives a shit what you say if your voting record is in line with all this other stuff? But I don't know. I guess we got nothing else to say.
I don't know.
hard to predict the future.
I wanted
too much.
I wanted to try to I don't know, avoid the whole groupthink mentality and try to play devil's advocate on this, but
it's tough. Though.
Yeah, like a few days ago, you maybe could, and then it's like, ew.
Like, in what way?
Okay, so more thought experiments, as in if this was the only time that he had ever done this, would all of his good deeds and good actions after that still qualify him for this position? Like, is that one mistake enough to disqualify him from holding this position for life? Now, and then there's so much nuance in this question, because first of all, there's it's how many women are on the Supreme Court? Is it
there's
one or
I don't know, two?
Not enough.
I don't know.
Ginsburg and but there's not much
Fair.
diversity there.
I literally don't know.
And so I would say maybe if he wasn't also, if you're saying you know what, the reason I did that was because of toxic masculinity and all of that shit.
Right.
No, but
That would be
legitimately,
wow.
if you're told get it however you can get it and you'll get high fives from all your buddies and you're trying to fit in with the frat boys and that's what made you do it, that's something I can maybe believe.
Some self-awareness.
But not if you're also anti-abortion.
Right.
So, no, you can't claim to care about women's rights and women's, bodily autonomy, and you're doing all these good things now if you're still going to be but you don't get to say what you do with your own body still. I won't jump on him anymore, but you got to still, do what we want you to do with them at all times.
Probably the most damning piece of, I don't know what you'd call it, information, or it was just a Facebook post that somebody made, but they were saying this guy wants to have a judgeship in the highest position in arguably the most powerful country in the world. I don't know, Russia, they got a good thing going there, but and he tries to use evidence about his calendar, about that I didn't have this party on my calendar back in 1984.
Who the fuck kept a calendar when they were
so clearly it didn't happen. Do you really want to judge 82? Do you really want to judge trying to use that as and even attempting to use that as evidence? That shows some clear bad fucking logic. Yeah. And that's what's most damning. That's to me, it's more damning than that. And then there was one other piece that went along with it was I can't remember, but that one was the fact that he would even think that he would use that as evidence. And now we have to extrapolate and say, okay, So when my next case is tried in front of Kavanaugh, I just need to bring up my calendar and be like, "See, sir, as you can clearly see, on this date, I was not.
So I must not.
I didn't have robbing the liquor store right in there.
I hope. You know what? That's the silver lining. You know, when Trump won, the silver lining was that it might fucking be disestablishment and it could fuck shit up. The silver lining if Kavanaugh wins is that every case that comes before him, people just bring their calendars, big infographics. As you can clearly see on this date, I did not have it listed in my infographic here. So that's the silver lining, I think. Was there another devil's advocate I wanted to play here?
I think what I'm seeing a lot of in other like skeptic and sciencey whatever groups is just that, you know, we can't bandwagon jump, we can't, you know, innocent until proven guilty and all that. And I think like people are really muddying the waters between the difference between a court of law and the court of public opinion. And they're saying like, like all these things that get tried in the court of public opinion is just awful. It's like every fucking thing gets tried in the court of public opinion. Tamagotchis aren't a thing anymore because nobody thinks they're cool. That's like
this is supposed to be the free market. That's
how
place
society
of ideas.
works. So yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to believe basically everybody that comes forward with a sexual assault allegation because I have no reason not to. If you tell me you have explosive diarrhea, I'm going to believe you. I do not need proof. Please don't give me proof. I'm going to, there's no reason to not believe you, and you have every reason to keep that to yourself. And if you're brave enough to stand in front of people and sign affidavits to the effect that that's what's happening to you, I have no reason to doubt that. So yeah, he can't go to jail and, you know, be tried in a court of law, but I think we're all within our rights to try him in the court of public opinion. And anybody that's accused, like every time some big name person gets accused of something, I, as a woman, and I don't want to speak for all women, but I'm like, yeah, probably. because I know if you're a woman who has been open and honest and spoken candidly with other open and honest women. Like I have a book club of like 13 women and we all ask like, you know, you don't have to tell us details, but how many of us here have experienced something? And all but one woman put up her hand. And we included like catcall, like the whole 9 yards.
Oh, okay.
And we were looking at her like, like you've never been talked to about like you've never been objectified. I don't, but she's so like sweet and innocent that it's like, I don't think he was actually talking about melons, like actual melons. Like I'm pretty sure he was being derogatory and objectifying you and you just didn't notice it, honey. Like it was that kind of bad, right? So I just, any woman that hears it is just like, yeah, probably, because everybody, and that's why I wonder if, from the male perspective, you know, like you said, you didn't even know rape culture existed and everything else. If you truly knew how common it was, would you be saying those things too? I would love to know that answer, and I don't think I'll ever get it.
It's a good question, though.
Yep.
Like I think in my upbringing, my dad never specifically talked about. I was pretty much raised by my dad alone, and he never really talked about rape culture or anything.
Or like back then, it would have just been like consent. What consent is,
and was never even talked about that.
No, I don't. Yeah. I don't think it was.
But yet somehow, both my brother and I were sort of instilled with that.
Somehow you're not rapists?
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Weird.
But like,
because unless somebody teaches you about rape culture, you're going to become a rapist. I'm pretty sure that's how that works.
I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but it is like what Sarah was saying to me.
Are you sure?
To you, when like before the whole Me Too movement and all of that, if somebody came out and accused somebody of something, it would be like unbelievable to you because that's never even a thought that can occur, right?
Or I would think, like you said, the rapist is the guy in the back alley, and you're walking, and he's just a bad
Bill
dude,
Cosby,
like a
right,
exactly,
like,
not a public figure, not a politician. You know, they're just the bad dudes, and they're just bad all over.
Yeah,
and like my dad came across a woman who had just been raped. We were camping, and we were driving around, and all of a sudden, this woman came out of the bushes clutching her clothes, and we stopped the car, and she said she was drunk, but she said, I think I've just been raped. And so we we brought her into the car and took her up to the front of, like, this was when I was, let's say, I don't know, I was 8 or 9 years old. Ironically, it was in Tisdale. Yeah. You know their slogan. But anyways, it was really, you don't? Tisdale is the land of rape and honey. It was super, awkward. They changed that slogan.
Do they mean like rapeseed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you know that canola oil is made from rapeseed, but they didn't want to call it rape oil? Yeah.
Anyway, and so, but it was weird. So we took her to the camp
office,
and so got her some assistance and everything and like that. But still, to me, throughout my entire life, rapists were just like
the scary guy in
the scary guys in the shadows. That was it.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've run out of time for this topic.
That's okay. What's next?
So we will take a quick break and we'll close out this session of the rec table. I will try to find some links to post in the show notes.
Wait, I forgot. Do you think Kavanaugh has a rectum? We have to bring it back.
I believe he does have a rectum.
Oh, I want to wreck him.
Do we get a proof of this? Do we have?
I'm not.
Okay, sorry, never mind. Continue.
All right.
Rectum listen until proven rectum.
All right, let's close this out and we'll go to a break.
If you like what we're doing and want to help us keep the lights on, go become a patron at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. You can hear the bonus half hour that we record every episode and get a shout out when you support the show. Become a patron for just $1 an episode at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. Or you can support the show by ordering a t-shirt, mug or other gear from our store at caffeepress.ca/brainstorm podcast gear. If you can't afford to become a patron or buy gear, then why not give us a rating or write a review on iTunes or Stitcher? Every rating makes it easier for people to find us. Thanks for your support.
Hello, Elon Dubrovsky here, local podcaster and science enthusiast. Are your podcasts spewing too much bunk all the time? Are your podcasts constantly making things up, driving you crazy? Are your podcasts full of shit? Think there's no answer? You're so stupid! There is! The Reality Check. Finally, there is a fun, skeptical Canadian podcast.
The San Francisco Hospital study on
paper
origami. Come on, guys, let me just...
Can you make a reel of Elon's paper shuffling?
Yeah. Make it like... That sounds amazing. Is your music player a computer, a phone, or an in-between? That doesn't matter, because we work on all platforms. The Reality Check. You'll be checked. So head on down to trcpodcast.com. That's the home of the Reality Check. Subscribe.
I will do a quick reading from Seeing Red, A History of Natives in Canadian Newspapers by Mark Cronland Anderson and Carmen L. Robertson.
Happy Orange Shirt Day, by the way, too.
Happy Orange Shirt Day. That's right.
They were mine.
Okay, so introduction. Eskimo families which live in clean modern homes and in which the father is a steady, skilled worker have fewer children that die in infancy than Eskimo families with more traditional lifestyles. From the Globe and Mail, 12 July 1974. Canada is home to more than 600 Indigenous nations, as well as roughly 500,000 Aboriginals living off reserve. Prior to the centuries-long European invasion, these groups spoke dozens of languages, exhibited wide variety in architecture, child-rearing, clothing, diet, gender relations, material culture, religion, rituals. In short, they varied in all the ways one might expect an enormous region occupied by a wide range of cultural groups. All told, in excess of 1.3 million Canadians claim some Aboriginal heritage according to the 2001 census. This includes First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. Yet the country's most ubiquitous agent of popular education, the newspaper, has tended to conflate all of these peoples into one heavily stereotyped monolith, patterned on a colonial ideology that flourishes to this day. This may come as a surprise if you think that colonialism is dead, a best forgotten relic of days gone by in Canada. It may also surprise you if you think that the press is strictly objective and nonpartisan. Indeed, if this is the case, you will be surprised to discover that the evidence shows something strikingly different. An examination of press content in Canada since the sale of Rupert's Land in 1869 through to 2009 illustrates that, with respect to Aboriginal peoples, the colonial imaginary has thrived, even dominated, and continues to do so in mainstream English language newspapers. Further, the press has never been nonpartisan or strictly objective in Canada. A wealth of studies and observations from daily life readily demonstrate this. Colonialism has always thrived in Canada's press. This is not a shock given Canada's imperial birth and its enduring colonial behavior with respect to Aboriginals since the country's phenomenal founding at Confederation in 1867. It is what David Spur refers to when he writes that the colonizer speaks as inheritor. Paul Nesbitt Larking notes that the medium of print is strongly associated with the politics of imperialism and colonialism. In this way, Canadian nationalism becomes imperialism because it shares the same dream. Further, these colonial actions become double-edged because the mainstream positions itself as a rightful owner of Aboriginal lands, as well as inheritor of English pattern of positioning itself with respect to Aboriginal peoples. Two examples exemplify this point. The first is the treaty system that, to begin with, effectively stripped Aboriginals of the vast majority of their lands at the end of the gun barrel or with the implied threat of violence. This amounted to naked military conquest, though it is rarely portrayed as such in Canada. Instead, the nation insists that violence was the American way, a projective tale that serves the high and mighty purposes of elevating Canadiana over Americana at the same time as promoting the disingenuous and misleading idea that Indigenous peoples sought the protection of the Canadian government in their desire for treaties. Again and again, in the 1870s, the press made it clear that Canada chose not to engage in all-out war because it was simply too expensive and not because it was somehow unwarranted. While it is true that the United States engaged in centuries-long assault to conquer Aboriginal lands with the few holds barred, it would be a serious mistake to conclude that Canada's emergence as a nation-state ultimately reflects a substantively kinder, gentler process. In the absence of, at the very least, the threat of overwhelming force, why would Aboriginals have willingly given up 95% of the territory they had possessed since time immemorial? Of course, there were other issues, including the sustainability of traditional ways in the life in the face of dwindling buffalo herds. But the treaties all derived, ultimately, from the fact of white invasion, which was inherently aggressive. The idea that Aboriginals desired to cede their lands, imperialism notwithstanding, clearly makes no sense at all unless one embraces a colonial ideology that endorses imperial land theft. Why would anyone freely give up huge regions of territory, traditional territory, in return for degraded status on small areas of marginal land? Aboriginals were compelled by force or the threat of use of force, and that is precisely how the press portrayed it in the latter 19th century. Today, at least, since 1997, even the Supreme Court of Canada recognizes the unsubtle and deliberate colonial intentions the federal government displayed in treaty relations. Yet Canadiana, crucially aided and abetted by newspapers and even scholars who should know better, has for decades denied it, persisting instead in believing the dreamed colonial version of history. In this way, Canada, like all nations, is an imagined community. That's where I'll stop right now. That's just an excerpt from Seeing Red, my new book that I'm enjoying quite a bit. All right, let's cue that outro music. For all those things, plus much more, you can check out the show notes at our website, brainstormblog.net, and our hosting page, thebrainstormpodcast.com. Thanks to our financial supporters, Kayla, Janet, Kim, Stephanie, Zach, the Utah Outcasts, Will, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Bob Glenn, Destin Doesn't Suck That Much, Magnus, several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave, positively skeptical, Rob, Keith, the Podunk Polymath, Larry, and the Flying Spaghetti Monster, sauce be upon him. If you want to join them and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. Or you can go and buy stuff at tpublic.com/stores/brainstorm-podcast-gear. Join us every 2 weeks on brainstormradio.net. Our next live show is on October 12th, and our guests are Kevin and Benedict from This Week in News with Kevin and Benedict. I want to give a big thanks to Dusty for joining us. You can find more of his stuff at cultofdusty.com, so make sure to check that out. Thank you to my panel, Lisa, Dan, Sarah, and Dave.
You're welcome.
I guess.
Thanks to Dave for our intro music. Thanks to Aaron Rabbi from the Embrace the Void podcast for doing the intro for our voiceover. You can find his stuff at voidpod.com. Thanks to Alex Capper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for our ads, and thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music. You can find his stuff at aloststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info page on our website, brainstormblog.net. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our subreddit, sign up for our newsletter, share the show, and spread the word. The more you share, comment, and like our stuff, the more it helps the show grow. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel, any guests, or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Cory, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.